Good morning, boys and girls. It's very early in the morning and we're standing at the front of my house. It's so early, in fact, that I'm standing in shadow because the sun's not yet come over the top of the house. And listen really carefully. Can you hear that? It's the sound of the birds. That's how early it is in the morning. Now, at the front of my house, you can see two things parked on the driveway. That's right, it's our cars, and this week in our literacy lessons we're going to be learning about journeys by car. Okay, so we're going to take a closer look at the car. Let's have a look what parts we can name when we look at the car sideways on. Let's start at the bottom of the car. Okay, so over here we've got, that's right, it's the wheel, and on the wheel we have a tyre, just like on your bicycle, which you looked at last week. And just like your bicycle, there is air inside this tyre, and the tyre needs to be kept pumped up. What else have we got? Right at the front of the car here, we've got the headlights. Now, what are the headlights used for? That's right, so when it's dark, we need to switch the headlights on so that other drivers and other people walking along the roads know that we are there. That's to keep them safe and to keep the car and the driver safe as well. Okay, over here, does anybody know what this is? That's right, it's the wing mirror. And the mirror is needed for the driver so that they can see what's happening around the car and behind the car as well. All right, we've obviously got our windows here so that we can see out, and our door handle so that we can open the car. And this car has got 5 doors, 2 round each side and 1 at the back, which is the boot. Now at the back of the car, we've got another set of lights, but this time they're not clear, they've got colours on them. So we've got our brake lights, and also we've got reversing lights as well, so that other drivers know if we want to go backwards. We've also got an indicator, and the indicator tells the drivers whether we want to turn left or turn right, and they flash yellow. Have a look at your lights at home. Ask Mummy and Daddy if they'll switch them on to show you. We've got our back windscreen so we can see what's going on behind us. And here, does anybody know what this is? That's right, it's a windscreen wiper. Why do we have windscreen wipers on cars at the front and at the back? That's right, it's to clear the windows if it's snowing or if it's raining or if the windows are dirty, because the driver needs to be able to see through the windows properly. Now at the back of the car we've also got a bumper and our registration plate. Every car has a unique set of letters and numbers so it can be identified. At the back of the car you can see the make of it. Has your car at home got a special badge on? Mine's a Vauxhall badge, and also the name of my car as well. It's a Zafira. I wonder what name your car has. Now, does anybody know what the flap in the side of the car might be for here? Let's open it and have a look. Ah, it seems to have some kind of plug inside, something that I need to twist. Let's give it a twist now. And let's see what it does. Oh, I can take it off. And it's left me with another hole inside. Does anybody know what might be inside that hole? That's right, it leads to the petrol tank. That's where we put the petrol in. What is petrol used for? That's right, it's the fuel that gives the car energy and allows it to go. Right, can you see whereabouts we are now? Yes, we're at the front of the car, and I've lifted up the bonnet so that you can take a look inside. Now, I'm not a mechanic, so I won't be able to name all the different parts inside the car for you, but the main thing that you need to know is this is where the engine is, and the engine is what drives the car. Now, you might have seen Mummy or Daddy putting things inside the engine or near to the engine so that the engine works really, really well. You might have seen them put some of this in, some oil, or perhaps some windscreen wash, or maybe some coolant. So it's really important that drivers look after the engines in their car so that they work really well. Okay, so we're inside the car now. Now, when you travel in your car, I bet you have to sit in something. I've got one here. This one belongs to Rebecca. What's this? That's right, it's a car seat. Why do you travel in a car seat when you go by car? Yes, it's to keep you safe, to make sure that if there was an accident that you are able to stay in your seat, because cars can travel very fast, can't they? Something that I'm sure you're all wearing when you're in your car is your seat belt. Again, that makes sure that we stay in our seat, especially if we have a crash. It's very important not to take this off while the car is going. Now, inside the car, there are lots of controls. Can you name some of them? What's this big circular one here? That's right, it's the steering wheel. And here we've got my controls to control my indicators and to control the windscreen and to control some of the lights as well. Over here we've got a gear stick. So unlike our bike, where if we're going uphill we're going to have to pedal really hard, or if we're going to go downhill we'll stop pedaling, the gears enable the car to cope with going up hills and also when it's going really fast down the hill. It's important to change gear. On the floor my feet are going to tap something. They're going to tap the pedals, and one of the pedals is the brake and one of them is the accelerator, which means I can speed up my car. There are lots and lots of controls inside the car as well that do all kinds of things. Some of them are just simply your radio, so have a look at that. This one down here is the handbrake, and I can lift the handbrake and that will stop the car, put some big brakes on the car for me. I've also got a mirror inside the car so I can see what's going on behind me as well. And if it's really sunny, which it might be today, I can put this up so that I don't get the sun in my eyes. There are lots and lots of controls in your car. See if Mummy and Daddy will let you sit inside and they'll tell you all about them. Now, does anybody know what this is? That's right, it's the key for the car. It goes inside the ignition and you can't start the car unless you've got a key. Now, I hope this morning that you really enjoyed looking around my car, and perhaps one day you'll have driving lessons and you'll own your own car. And our first story for this week is called Mrs Armitage, Queen of the Road by Quentin Blake. And we've already met Mrs Armitage before, haven't we? She was in our story last week. And do you remember she was a bit of an inventor with her bike, wasn't she? And she is in this book too. She's given a gift of a car by her uncle Cosmo. And in true Mrs Armitage style, she's not too satisfied with this car. So let's see what she's going to do. Mrs Armitage, Queen of the Road by Quentin Blake. One morning, Mrs Armitage came downstairs and found a letter on the mat. She read it to her faithful dog Breakspear. It said, "Dear Anastasia, because I'm buying a new motorcycle, I shall not need my old car anymore. I would like you to have it as a present. It is in the street outside. Here are the keys. With love, from your Uncle Cosmo." There was the car. "It doesn't look very exciting, Breakspear," said Mrs Armitage, "but we'll give it a try." They climbed into the car and off they went. They had not been going very long when they went over a big hole in the road. Bing, bong, dang, boing! All the hubcaps fell off. Mrs Armitage got out to look at the damage. "Hubcaps," she said. "Who needs them?" She took them off to the scrap heap and on they went. But as they were going round the corner by the vinegar works, scrunch! The mudguard was ruined. Mrs Armitage got out to look at the damage. "Mudguards," she said, "who needs them?" She took them off to the scrap heap and on they went. They were backing out of the scrapyard when crang! The front bumper had caught on an old bedstead. Mrs Armitage got out to look at the damage. "Bumpers," she said, "who needs them?" She threw the bumpers onto the scrap heap and drove away. They were on their way past the supermarket when a lorry backed into the street. Crunch! Right into the bonnet. Mrs Armitage got out to look at the damage. The bonnet, she said. Who needs it? She took it off to the scrap heap and on they went. There was quite a traffic jam beside the new building site where a big crane was moving heavy blocks of concrete. To and fro it went, up and down, when suddenly, crunch! Mrs Armitage got out to look at the damage. A roof, she said. Who needs it? She took it off to the scrap heap and on they went. Breakspear, said Mrs Armitage, I think it's time for us to get out of this town. And they went down a side road into the country. All about them were trees and the birds were singing. Breakspear, said Mrs Armitage, this is blissful. But the road got bumpier and bumpier. Ba-ding, ba-dong, ba-dang, ba-doing, clunk. All of the doors fell off and the boot as well. Mrs Armitage got out to look at the damage. All this stuff, Breakspear, she said. Who needs it? Let's throw it all on the scrap heap and be on our way. But at that moment there was a roar. It was Uncle Cosmo on his new bike. His friends were there too. Gizzy and Lulu, Ferdinando and Smudge. They were all out for a day's drive. They all gathered around to look at Mrs Armitage's machine. Wow, said Gizzy. Wherever did you get it? It's fantastic. We're off to the Crazy Duck Cafe for a game of billiards and a can of banana fizz, said Uncle Cosmo. You must come too. But first, have this leather jacket, said Smudge. I've grown too big to wear it. And you must each have a collar, said Lulu. I don't need all three. And have one of our bendy masks, said Gizzy. We don't need both of them. And let me give you a motor horn, said Ferdinando. I don't need all five of them, and it's always good to have a motor horn. Off they roared to the Crazy Duck Cafe, and out in front, with her faithful dog Breakspear, was Mrs Armitage, Queen of the Road.